All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. It is me, Legal Vices, and back by popular demand. You liked it so much for the 1899 show, which unfortunately was canceled, that a lot of you asked me to do it for The Last of Us. Decent video game. I liked the first one. Nah, I didn't like the second one so much, but The Last of Us number one was a great video game, and now they've gone and made it a show on HBO. So here we are again with a spoiler filled, unprofessional, unedited, one take review of season one, episode one of The Last of Us. And it's already been renewed for a second season. So that's promising. I didn't want to watch this because I thought it might suck, but let's see what I think about it. All right. As you know, this is how we do this. We just go through. It's totally spoiler filled. We talk about everything. So if you don't want any spoilers, don't watch this. It's totally unprofessional because I'm reading off of my notes and always looking down, and it's unedited and one take because I'm lazy. So here we go. Ready, begin. Okay, it starts out in 1968. There's a new virus. They're talking about it on a talk show, and they're telling some of the benefits and the dangers of viruses and what they can do. And one guy says, "Well, some die, some live, but we always win." And you know, fungus can't live in a body that's above 94 degrees, so it can't live. It can't live inside of our bodies. But then they ask the question, but what if the globe warms up a little bit? Meaning, you know, these viruses would adapt and be able to survive at body temperatures above 94 degrees. And so I was kind of panicking. I'm like, all right, here we go. We're literally 2 minutes into this, and we're already shoving, you know, political agendas down your throat. Whether you believe in climate change or not, it's beside the point. I just don't want to see it in my stupid. You know, I watch these things just for fun. You know, I don't watch The Last of Us to be preached to, but thankfully that's kind of where it ended right there. It didn't continue through the whole thing. There hasn't been any other woke moment. But anywho, they say if that happens, then a fungus can take over our bodies, and it will do its best to keep us. It'll keep us alive so that it can continue to feed off of us. So even though our bodies may be dead, the virus can still continue to feed on us, and it can spread to everyone. And the guy said, "But I don't really care." And he's like, "So well, why not? Because if that happens, we lose." And then it goes into the opening, and the opening was total Games of Thrones opening for viruses. Uh, just imagine that if you haven't seen it. And then it cuts to 2003. So we jump ahead a few years, and it's Joel's birthday. Joel's the main character. It's his birthday, and his daughter Sarah wants to make him breakfast, and then his brother Tommy shows up to join the breakfast. It's starting out like a normal day. Everything's going well, and Sarah goes into the top. They're gonna go work, and he is gonna take his daughter to school and drop her off at school. But she goes into his drawer and basically steals his watch and about $60 from a drawer, and then runs out and gets in the car. As they're driving away, you can see that Tommy was a Desert Storm vet. He's got stickers on his truck, and then he cuts into class. Sarah's in class being a good student, but after school, she jumps on a bus and goes into the city, goes into a pawn shop, and it turns out she didn't steal the watch to pawn it. She took it to the pawn shop so that they could repair it for her father's birthday. And then while she's there, there's lots of sirens, lots of cop cars driving down the roads and things. She comes out and the streets are empty. Then she goes over to the neighbor's house when she gets home, I guess, to wait for her dad to do homework. And it's sort of set up that she occasionally goes and visits the old lady next door that seems to be suffering from severe Alzheimer's or something like that. She's basically immobile and just sort of stares out the window and doesn't seem to recognize or remember anybody. So she's there doing her homework, helping out with the old lady. She's looking at books on the bookshelf. And then the old lady that's just been immobile in the wheelchair the entire time starts going in the background, out of focus. And then she just gets normal again. And as the girl's leaving, as Sarah's leaving the house to go back home, the dog is just having a staring contest with grandma in the chair. And then there's like fighter jets start going overhead. That's kind of weird. So Sarah goes back to her house, and then Joel comes back from work. And while they're getting ready for that, they're getting ready to go to sleep. They're just kind of hanging out, and then they watch a movie, and Tommy calls. Tommy calls Joel and says, "I'm in jail. You got to come and get me. And then so Joel goes to the jail. I guess he gets him out, but he doesn't tell Sarah he's leaving. He just puts her on her bed, and then he takes off to go get Tommy out of jail. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and these helicopters fly overhead. Like, I'm assuming military helicopters fly overhead really low, and that wakes Sarah up. And she walks around the house. There's no Joel. Joel's nowhere to be found, and she doesn't know where he is because he didn't tell her anything. And there's a warning on the TV that says stay indoors. So logically, what does Sarah do? She goes outdoors. And while she's looking around the neighborhood, she hears some noise coming from the neighbor's house. So again, in a good horror story or video game fashion, you have to go check out what all of those horrible noises are that are coming from the neighbor's house. So she goes up. The door is unlocked, so cool. She just walks on in the house, and the grandma is eating the family, and these little fungus tentacly things are coming out of her mouth, kind of like Dr. Zoidberg, but smaller. Um, so grandma's chomping down on the family. The fungus is in her mouth. Then she goes and starts chasing Sarah. Sarah runs out of the house, starts running towards her house, and then just when it looks like she might be caught, Tommy and Joel pull up in the truck, and they arrive just in time to take Granny out with a shot to the head. But no, they didn't have the gun there at that point. What it was a pipe wrench. Joel pipe wrenched the old bag and KO'd her with that. And then they go home, they pack everything, they get everything, they run, and it looks like they're heading towards San Antonio, I believe. The virus is mostly in the city, they say. And Sarah's worried because she went to the city to get the watch fixed. So now she's kind of panicking, like, oh my God, what if I have it? And as they're driving through, they're trying to escape from the town. Everybody's eating everything, and they have to drive through the streets, avoiding people, monsters, other cars, whatnot. But just as it looks like they're going to get out of the city, a plane crashes behind them, and boom, shrapnel hits the truck, and the truck flips, and they're all kind of going. They all regain consciousness eventually. Everybody seems to be okay, but then it turns out Sarah has a hurt ankle. Sarah's ankle's hurt, and they're running down, and a police truck, a police SUV slams into the back of their truck, and they get separated from Tommy. They're stuck down an alley, and Tommy's on the other side. So they say, hey, let's go meet up at the river. We'll meet you at the river. So they're walking along. Joel is holding Sarah, carrying her down towards the river, and I guess Tommy's making his own way over there somehow. And then they meet a military guy who tells them to stop. And it looks like the military guy is going to shoot Joel and Sarah. He gets the orders to kill. He's like, I'm sorry. And then boom, Tommy shows up and shoots the guy in the head. But while he's killing military guy, it's the old thing. You know, it turns out that Sarah got shot in the stomach. And Sarah dies. So we lose the main character's daughter towards the beginning of the first episode. And it's weird. I'm like, well, I was weirdly emotional. Like, why the hell was I getting emotional? I don't know. That's just what I was doing. And then it fast forwards to 20 years later. So now we're in 2023. We're in real time now. There's just some girl walking around. And she kind of, she's like slogging, not going full monster, but she's like shuffling along. And I'm starting to wonder, is this Ellie? Is this the main character other than Joel? It's like Joel and Ellie are the two main characters. Could this be her? I'm wondering. And just in case you were wondering, if you hear all this snoring and snorting and licking and whatever breathing, it's not me. It's the two 50-pound English bulldogs that are sitting under my desk and warming my feet. Turns out they're in Boston, and everything is totally trashed and ruined. Everything's overgrown. People are looking out, and they see this girl fall. They see she collapses in the dirt, and then they run off and they bring her into the quarantine station. Now, inside the quarantine station, there's a bunch of people. They're going about business. They're going about their daily life, and there's a group of people that are burning bodies. They're keeping the bodies burnt and cleaned off. And turns out Joel is one of the body burners. So Joel is in Boston. And there's the Fireflies. They're kind of the terrorist or the freedom fighters, however you want to look at it. They're the terrorist group. We'll call them terrorists just because that's a fun word to say. Well, YouTube probably doesn't like it, but whatever. So there's Firefly graffiti on the wall, and they're holding some public executions for going outside the zone, coming back into the zone illegally. They're doing a bunch of public executions, hangings. And it turns out that Joel is selling drugs. Why would Joel be selling drugs? But it turns out he's buying drugs to buy it. He's selling drugs to buy a truck, and he sells drugs to a military guy who tells him, keep out of the streets for the next few nights. They're going to be cracking down on the Fireflies, and the guys get nervous and they're a little bit edgy. So be careful. And while he's doing that, it cuts to Tess. Tess is another one of the characters. She's Joel's sort of partner here at some point. But Tess is talking to some people, and there's a big explosion in the wall. And it looks like it might be the terrorists. We don't know. But the cops come in and arrest Tess, assuming that she's one of the Fireflies. And then it cuts to Ellie. It turns out it is Ellie, just because from the dialogue, you figure it out. Ellie is chained to a wall, and they're testing her. And she's got a little mouth. She's a little girl. She's dropped 2 F-bombs in about 30 seconds. There's a lot of F-bombs in this show. Then it cuts to Joel. Joel is trying to get Tommy on ham radio. Turns out Tommy's somewhere else. He's off in Wyoming. Wow, dogs, you're snoring loud. So Joel's trying to get a hold of Tommy on a ham radio. They haven't been in contact for 3 weeks. And so he decides he's going to go to Wyoming to find him. So I guess that's why he wants to buy this truck. He's selling the drugs, working extra hard to make some money so that he can buy this truck to get to Wyoming to see if he can reconnect with his brother, who apparently he's had a falling out with. He goes home and he drinks a lot. He takes a lot of drugs, and then he falls asleep. It turns out Tess comes in the middle of the night and lays down on the bed with him. She's been released from prison, from custody. That was nice. And dog barks too. Well, this might be a 2-taker. I don't know. They've never done that before. Cool. All right. So anyway, yeah. Looks like this is going to be a 2-taker, isn't it? Or at least not a 2-taker, just an edited version. If that happens again. All right. So it turns out somebody stole the battery. They were supposed to get a battery, and that's what Tess was talking about with this guy before the room exploded. They're trying to get a battery for the truck, and whoever they were supposed to get the battery from, they sold it to someone else. So somebody took their battery, and they're pissed, and they're going to go hunt the person who took their battery. They're going to get that battery back. And then it cuts to the Firefly headquarters, and we meet Marlene, who is the leader of the Fireflies. They're in her headquarters, and of course, she drops lots of F-bombs too. And the Fireflies, they're going to leave the zone with Ellie. They're going to escape that night from the zone with Ellie in tow. And Tess and Joel, they continue their journey to find the battery thief. They're going down into the subway system and whatnot. And then it goes back to Marlene. Marlene goes in with Ellie and cuts her loose from being chained to the wall, and tells her that she's like, well, why can't I go home? Everybody. And through this long little dialogue, we find out that Ellie has been living in an orphanage, and Marlene put her there. So he tells her, yeah, she said, I put you there, and then tells her that she can't go home. She says, well, why can't I go home? And Marlene says that you have a greater purpose. But if Ellie tells anyone what this purpose is, she'll die. She'll be killed. And so Tess and Joel they're sneaking again to find battery guy. They're going through the subway tunnels. They get into a building. They search the building. There's a dead infected guy that has been killed and munched on by the virus peoples. And they look down at the door. They're gonna go through this door, and they look down at the door, and there's blood running under the door down their step. And so they go, okay, something's going on here. And it happened very, very recently because the blood is still fresh and running. So they go in through the door, and it turns out that Marlene and Ellie are there, and then Joel and Tess are there. So all of them meet in the hallway, and Joel knows Marlene, and because it turns out that for some reason, or however it happened, Marlene was the one that turned Joel's brother Tommy against him. So he's pissed at her, and the government Fedra. They're coming because they heard the shooting, obviously. And she tells Joel she got shot. Marlene got shot in the stomach too. Everybody's getting shot in the stomach. So she tells Joel, you have to take Ellie across the country. You have to get her all the way across the country. They'll give you everything you need to get her out, to get your brother back, whatever. But she has to get out of here. I think it was San Diego. They said they had to go to. So get over there, and eventually talks him into it. And then they all go through the tunnel to outside the quarantine zone. So it's Tess, Ellie, and Joel. They get outside the quarantine zone at night. They're climbing around rocks and the under buses through gullies, and it looked very, very video game like. A lot of the scene, it was directly how you would operate inside the video game. So I like that about the show. There, that's it looked like the video game. You had the same kind of tonal quality to it, the same kind of setup. So it was pretty faithful to the game there, where they're walking through places trying to escape, and they're hiding from patrols. But it turns out there's one guy that's peeing against the wall. They try to sneak behind him, but he turns around and he sees them and he pulls up his gun. And it turns out it was the military guy that was buying drugs from Joel. So he catches them, and Joel says, "Let's forget about this." And he says, "Sorry, I got to do this by the book." And he wants to test them all for the virus. Red, you've got the red, you're clean. Green, you're clean. Red, you've got the virus. And so they're going and they start testing them. Ooh, what do you know? It's great because Joel and Tess, they both test green. They don't have the virus. And then he gets to Ellie, and then Ellie stabs the guy with a pocket knife she had, and the guy gets pissed, obviously. And then Joel flashes back to when Sarah got shot in the stomach. And then he attacks the military guy and literally just punches him in the face to death. He just beats him repeatedly in the face until he's good and dead and gone. And then Tess freaks out, and she shows Joel Ellie's test. Ellie is tested red. She's positive for the fungus, whatever. We got to say virus because we're talking about a virus show. Not the virus, YouTube. It's the game virus. So yeah, turns out Ellie is red. She's tested positive for the virus. And I mean, Ellie has. And Tess freaks out. She's like, "Joel, look." And Joel's like, "What the F?" And Ellie says, just, I'm not sick. I'm not sick. And then she shows a scar on her arm. The scar is a kind of an important part of the game, both in the first game and then also in Last of Us 2. So they show the scar on her arm that we've all wanted to see. And she said, this happened a while ago. It's an old scar. Everything's fine. I can't explain right now. Well, if you've played the game, you know what the reason is. But I won't tell you until they know. I'm not going to give forward spoilers. So they flee the city. It's all, again, very game-like how they got out of the city. And that's the end of the first episode. I think it's a really, really good start. I like it so far. They've been faithful to the game as far as visuals go. The storyline, you always have to make some changes. If you want something exactly like the video game, play the video game. There hasn't been anything too huge to turn me off yet. Like I said, I thought it was great, and can't wait for the second episode, which I'm going to start watching right as soon as I shut this down. And I guess kind of like 1899 on Netflix. I don't know if they're going to do this for every episode, because every episode of 1899 ended with a really cool song, which, like, a lot of my favorite songs were there, so that was pretty decent. This show ended with Depeche Mode's "Never Let Me Down Again" for the closing credits. So I wonder if they're going to do a different song every time, or if it's just going to be that song through the entire thing. We'll just have to wait and see. That was the spoiler-filled, unprofessional, very unedited, complete with dog barks and snoring, one-take review of The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 1. Come back for Episode 2. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Lawrax out. Enjoy your legal vices.